Okay, now I'm going to say something, and I want a show of hands to everybody who knows what this means. Talent keyhole. Okay, Clyde, come on up, man. You're the one that knows. No, I didn't make it up. No, that's actually a term. It used to be top secret. Clyde is going to talk to us about our satellite program, and back in the day, that's what talent keyhole referred to in classified stuff. So take it away, Clyde.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today's briefing will be on satellite capabilities. I will also touch on current events with satellites and a little bit about something that we've all been interested in. So nothing here is classified. However, you will see some imagery that very few people has ever seen. During the question and answer period, I always add this. If you ask me a question that's going to drag me into the classified arena, my current answer will be that you're outside the scope of this briefing. So if you would please dim the lights, please. So these were the clearances that I had to deal with. The last one is, the last two are really top secret SCI, which means special compartmented information, and talent keyhole. And you'll see what talent keyhole meant. As Skip said earlier, at one time, if you said talent keyhole outside of a skiff, you met people with badges. So how we got involved in the satellite business, it all happened under the Eisenhower administration. Everybody here remembers May 5th, well, probably not everybody, but some people here remember May 5th, 1960, when Gary Powers was shot down in a U-2. We were using U-2 flights to cover the Soviet Union from the late 50s all the way till he got nailed. And the reason why he got nailed is that the Soviets eventually built a missile to get him, which we all know, my Air Force brothers know, as the SA-2 guideline. The initial SA-1 couldn't reach it, but the SA-2 did get it, and that caused us to get into the satellite business. We weren't the only people who had U-2s. We sold U-2s to Taiwan, and they were doing a lot of clandestine work into China. For those of you who have been to China, there's a whole museum in China that has all the U-2s that have been shot down. You can read the briefing here. They captured a bunch of pilots, the whole 9 yards. But the U-2, we weren't the only country to use U-2s. We sold them to the Chinese, and we taught the Taiwanese, excuse me, how to use the U-2, and they used it very effectively. Naturally, everybody here knows about the SR-71. If you guys are very interested in about the SR-71, I can give you a very detailed briefing about that. Also the A-12, which is its single brother on that. But we're not going to cover that right now. But these were the two platforms that basically drug us into the satellite imagery. This is why we have photo reconnaissance satellites. I'll let you read it. We also have another brand of satellites called IR satellites, infrared satellites, which are basically geosynchronous, which basically sit over all our adversaries to keep an outlook on when and if they're going to shoot a missile at us. And that has happened a couple of times inadvertently. These are all the satellite systems that we started with. If you look at some of the dates on them, they start way back in the late 60s. The ones that we really worked on right now are the ones towards the end, down here. The KH-9 and the KH-11. Those are the most high-tech ones. And those are the ones that you're going to see some imagery on here shortly. The KH-7 was the first one that came out. It was film-based, pretty high-tech for its time. It did a really good job of getting us what we wanted to do over denied territory over the Soviet Union and China and other areas. The KAH was the follow-on to it. It was, once again, it was film-based. Did a really good job, but we needed something a little bit better. The KH-9 is the, as I would call, the Mercedes of the satellite systems. That is a phenomenal platform right now. It used to be you couldn't even say KH-9, but right now, if you go to the Air Force Museum, you can see a KH-9 in the flesh, and you'll see some of those pictures. This is really a phenomenal platform. It had a very, very high success rate. We only lost one of them, and the one we lost was the last missile that we launched. This is how it worked. It's basically, it was a film recovery system. It shot actually film, and those little domes would be launched out after it did the film, and we would be picked up. That's actually a picture of it. As you can see, it was top secret at one time, but it's no longer top secret. But that's how that system worked. It took a lot of engineering. These were people who did this with slide rules. This is a close-up of the camera. This is actually at the Air Force Museum where I took these pictures at. Those are the canisters that once the film was collected, it would be dropped down, and you'll see how that worked. That's the film recovery sequence. After so much film was taken up, it was ejected from it, and it was dropped down over the Pacific, and you can see the airplanes here. I think I have a picture of it. Yep, that's right there how it was recovered. So there were two instances with this KH-9 that happened. It was actually kind of funny, but it really wasn't funny. For those of you people who saw the movie Ice Station Zebra, you ever seen that movie? All right, so the movie Ice Station Zebra was taken from this sequence. One of these capsules ended up in the rainforest in Amazon, and one of them ended up in the Atlantic Ocean, and they didn't want to make sure anybody got it, so they developed a submarine, which we now know, which I can give a whole nother briefing on that one. Well, we ended up picking that one up. But the one in the Amazon, nobody could find for a long time because some archaeologists came and got, what's this? And it had U.S. government on it, and they ended up sending a team in and getting it. So they said, we can't have any of that anymore because the resolution of these cameras was phenomenal, and you'll see some pictures of it. Okay, so that's what a picture would look like from a KH-9. Considering the technology, it was pretty good. An airfield over Moscow, you could actually break out what type of airplanes they were. Areas, the bad guys weren't going to get a chance to basically hide what we wanted to see. The lacrosse system uses synthetic aperture radar, which that's another briefing that I could give for all day. But the bottom line, SAR radar is really what you need to be able to see through clouds and stuff like that. And we do that better than anybody else. So the reason why I put this slide in here, those of you remember the MH370 crashed from the Indonesian airliner that took off out of Indonesia. It was supposed to go to Beijing. Okay, and we've never found it. Well, so far we've never found it. The reason why I put this slide up there is because our satellites look at this part of the Indian Ocean all the time. Not only that, that red spot in front of you is Diego Garcia, what we all know as, what I knew as during the Gulf War as Camel Station. So Camel Station has radar like nobody's business. And also, those of you who know where Australia, Perth is, we have a whole bunch of radars there because we use those same radars when we shoot moonshots up. So we have radars there. We also have radars in Diego Garcia. And then you can see where the Persian Gulf is. We have a fleet of aircraft carriers and a bunch of ships in there. So when they say that they can't, that we don't know where that airplane is, oh, the United States knows where it is. The problem is that if we tell anybody where it is, we reveal our capabilities. And we can't reveal any capabilities to these people in this part of the world. That's the reason. But you can see by where our radar stations are, there's nothing that's going to fall in the water that big as a 767 that we're not going to know where it's at. So you can put that rumor to rest. We know exactly where it is. We know how it went down, the whole 9 yards, but we can't tell anybody. So everybody remembers this picture, right? Okay, so that's the Chinese balloon up there. And I put this in there because there's our U-2 right there taking a selfie of this and gathering all kinds of information on it. So that was pretty interesting idea for them to do that type of thing. But you'll see in another couple of slides the capabilities that we have, but we haven't been using them because we didn't expect this to happen. So we ended up putting a U-2 in the air, scarfing up a lot of information. And those of you who don't know what an RC-135 is, an RC-135 is out of the 55th Strat Reconnaissance Wing out of Offutt. They fly very specialized KC-135s. These are the airplanes that the Soviets would love to shoot down and can't shoot down. These are ones that pick up all the missile imagery, the whole 9 yards. Very highly classified bunch of guys. We launched one of those, and we tracked that radar balloon, that's a Chinese balloon, and got all kinds of great information from it. There's nothing in that we didn't get out of it. That we waited till it got away from where we wanted to get and shot it down, and we recovered a lot of the information. All right, so people ask, how did that Chinese balloon get this way, and how did it get that far? This is Cobra Dane. Most of you who don't know anything about Cobra Dane is a very big radar site in the Shimia Islands that basically is looking for a pre-strike missile attack on the United States. Okay, I'll let you read it, but the bottom line is we can track a basketball at about a little over 2,000 miles away, no problem. The problem is that this radar was designed to pick up something moving at Mach 10, because that's what the missiles are going to be looking. It's looking for reentry vehicles. It's not looking for something moving at like 35 knots. So we were caught short on that. So they're recalibrating Cobra Dane. It's not that we don't have that type of system. Oh, we do. Because here's the coverage of Cobra Dane right there. Okay? So anything coming over that pole, anything coming across Alaska, we know about it. We just didn't have the radars capable of tracking it because there's two ways that radars work. You have a speed gate and a range gate, and you work one or you work the other. And the speed gate we had for that wasn't capable of catching something moving at 35 knots. I hope this has been an interesting briefing. I will take some questions. I need a microphone.
The question was, as far as the imagery, can you get black and white, or is it color, or all of the above?
All the imagery for the film base was black and white. The imagery for the KH-11, it depends on the resolution you want. You can get color, but it's going to be, you got to remember, it's a satellite up there, and there's not like you can reload what you have up there. So when you want color, you sacrifice something for it, if that makes any sense.
Do you have problems with the fog and smoke and radar?
Are there problems with fog and smoke on the radar?
No, because synthetic aperture radar, clouds doesn't matter. Once again, there are two types of satellites. There are EO, electro-optical, what we're seeing, and IR, infrared. And so the infrared satellites could care less about that. They see through fog, and rain, and all that. But those satellites are very hard to maintain, and they're very expensive to put in the air because they're very, very sensitive sensors, extremely sensitive sensors.
Is there a KH-12?
Is there a KH-12?
No, not right now that I'm aware of a KH-12. There's probably a KH-13, but not a KH-12.
What was the question?
Is there a KH-12 satellite? And the answer is no.
That he knows.
Thank you. I have two questions. On reference to the Chinese balloon, was its information gathering technology taken out before it came across the United States? And then did they wait for it to go all the way across the United States so they could shoot it down in the ocean where they could collect it and gather information from it?
Are you talking about the Chinese balloon?
Yes.
Yeah, the Chinese balloon, once it was, from what I know about it, once it was figured out, okay, how did this get here? That's when the U-2 got involved, because the U-2 was slow enough platform that could basically fly around it and sweep up what it needed to. And then once it got, that said, hey, we can't do all this, that's when they launched the RC-135, the rivet joint. You could go Google rivet joint and you'll find out what rivet joint does. Rivet joint and combat scent are made for this type of platform to basically vacuum up information. And they were able to, from my buddies that are still doing this, they were able to basically nullify any of the transmissions going back to China. So, because that's what rivet joint and combat scent does. Question
No.
back here.
Who is the principal contractor to build these things?
I'm sorry, I can't.
What contractor builds these things?
Lockheed Martin builds the all the KH-9 and KH-11 are all Lockheed, but they're Lockheed Sunnyvale, California.
The person who gave the KH-11 information to, the person who gave the KH-11 information to Russia, is he, she, it, or they still alive?
The person who gave the KH-11 from Lockheed,
Yeah.
that gave the KH-11 book to the Russians,
Yeah.
is that person still alive?
Or is in prison?
Okay, so the question was, the guy who gave the KH-11 book to the Soviet Union in the 90s, is he still alive? He was prosecuted, and he's probably in that prison in Colorado, but I don't think he's dead. I don't think they killed him, because they didn't kill Hansen, who did some of the most dastardly stuff to this country that God has ever known, and the other FBI guy. So we don't kill our spies yet.
Clyde, I want to add something. I worked at Lockheed Martin, and I was in Skunk Works. And there's a lot of fear spread in the media about the Chinese balloon, but I can tell you right now, most everything you see in the media about the Chinese and the Russians, they're about 20 years behind us.
That's good to know.
We have one question. Go ahead.
In your estimation, were we correct in allowing that balloon to traverse over the continental U.S., or should we have disabled it and shot it down before it ever got here?
That's really a two-part question, because in my opinion, if I was a general and I was NORAD commander, yeah, I wanted that thing to come all the way across. I wanted to be able to put platforms in the air and get around it and basically find out what it was doing and how it was doing it, and then get it away from the population of the United States, nail it and put it in the water, and then get it. It would have been nice if we could have done it over basically somewhere in the desert and stuff like that, but that wasn't the case. So in my estimation, I think we did it right, because we let it get to the point where we found out what it could do and how it was steerable. We now know it was steerable. Any other questions?
Thank you, Clyde. Very interesting and informative, and just a very brief comment. The great thing about a lot of this is that as it works down the totem pole and you come to, Clyde talked about the RC-135 and there are other kinds of platforms, and then at the bottom of that totem pole in terms of capabilities lies the human intelligence and signals intelligence from ground stations. And the people who put all that together are just, they'll knock your socks off. They are so exceptionally bright in terms of bringing all that together into a collaborative picture for someone to make decisions on, be it at the top of the totem pole or further down. It's really fantastic. And an example was the bin Laden compound and bin Laden raid, which just required an immense amount of not only historical intelligence, but the human side, the signal, the optics on the ground, et cetera. Thank you. Thank you very much, Clyde.
Any other questions? Well, I hope you enjoyed the briefing, and once again, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you.
Good job, thank you.